What if the problems we face today, the housing crisis, crumbling infrastructure, slow scientific progress, aren't inevitable challenges, but choices we've made? This is the central question posed by Ezra Klein and Thompson in their groundbreaking book, Abundance, which challenges us to rethink how we approach progress in the modern world. The book argues that America is experiencing what the authors call chosen scarcity, artificial shortages created not by natural limits, but by our own regulations, processes, and mindset. Take housing, for example. We don't have a housing shortage because there's no land or materials. We have it because of zoning laws, lengthy approval processes, and NIMBY attitudes that prevent new construction. This hits home for anyone who's struggled to find affordable housing or watch their rent skyrocket year after year. What's particularly striking is the book's critique of liberal policies. Klein and Thompson argue that since the 1970s, American liberalism has transformed from an ideology of building to an ideology of blocking. Well-intentioned environmental regulations now prevent clean energy projects. Historic preservation laws stop new housing development. Process-heavy bureaucracy turns what should be quick infrastructure projects into decade-long ordeals. Consider California's high-speed rail project. Originally budgeted at $33 billion with a 2020 completion date, it has ballooned to over $100 billion with no clear end in sight, and only a tiny segment has been built. Meanwhile, states like Texas, despite being more conservative, are actually building renewable energy and housing faster because they've streamlined their approval processes. This resonates with anyone who's dealt with government bureaucracy. How many times have you waited months for a simple permit? How often have you seen construction projects drag on endlessly? The book suggests this isn't just inefficiency. It's a systematic problem with how we prioritize process over results. The authors propose a shift from demand-side progressivism, focusing on spending money, to supply-side progressivism, actually building things. They argue that success should be measured not by how much money we approve, but by what we actually construct in the physical world. This is a powerful reframe that applies to our personal lives too. Instead of just planning and talking about our goals, we need to focus on tangible results and rapid iteration. The book highlights the concept of implementation versus invention. America excels at inventing new technologies, but struggles to scale them up. The COVID-19 vaccine development through Operation Warp Speed is cited as a brilliant example of what's possible when government streamlines processes and focuses on speed. The program combined push funding, direct subsidies to pharmaceutical companies, with pull funding, guaranteed purchase contracts. This eliminated the financial risk that typically slows down innovation. This principle applies beyond government. In our careers and personal projects, we often get stuck in endless planning phases. The book suggests we should embrace what the authors call fast and effective approaches, cutting through unnecessary steps to achieve real outcomes quickly. One of the most thought-provoking sections addresses what Thompson calls the antisocial century. Americans spend 20% less time in face-to-face social interaction than just 20 years ago. Technology has privatized our lives. Cars privatized transportation and pushed us to suburbs. Television privatized leisure time, and smartphones privatized our attention, allowing us to be alone even when surrounded by others. This analysis hits particularly hard for anyone who's noticed how smartphones have changed social dynamics. The book suggests that the dopamine hits from social media are reducing our drive for real-world adventures and interactions. Young people increasingly celebrate canceled plans rather than seek out social connections. The solution isn't to abandon technology, but to adopt what the authors call amistics, the Amish approach of only incorporating technology when it serves our existing values. The book's vision of scientific progress is equally compelling. The National Institutes of Health, despite being one of the world's premier biomedical research institutions, is plagued by bureaucratic processes that encourage incremental rather than breakthrough research. Scientists spend up to 40% of their time on grant applications and paperwork rather than actual research. The authors propose experimental approaches like golden ticket policies, where individual panel members can fund promising ideas even if others disagree, or lottery systems for grant distribution. This speaks to anyone working in large organizations. How often do we get bogged down in administrative tasks that add little value? The book suggests we should constantly ask whether our processes serve our goals or have become ends in themselves. Perhaps most powerfully, the book calls for a new, political order focused on building rather than blocking. The authors trace American political history through the New Deal order of the 1930s through 1960s, which emphasized government construction and social programs, followed by the neoliberal order beginning in the 1970s, which reduced government's role but created what they call a vetocracy, a system where it's easier to stop things than to build them. The result is government that is big but weak, large bureaucracies that can't actually accomplish much. The book envisions fast and effective government that prioritizes outcomes over process. The example of Pennsylvania's I-95 bridge, rebuilt in just 12 days after a collapse by cutting through normal environmental reviews and bidding processes, shows what's possible when we focus on speed and results. This principle extends to our personal and professional lives. How often do we get trapped in our own vetocracies, systems of habits, committee decisions, and overanalysis that prevent us from taking action? The book suggests we need to develop what they call a bias toward building, defaulting to action rather than endless deliberation. The book's critique of the antisocial century offers a roadmap for rebuilding human connections. Instead of waiting for external solutions, the answer is ourselves, that is, spending time with other people. This means making conscious choices about how we use technology and prioritizing in-person interactions even when digital alternatives seem more convenient. For those of us trying to build anything, whether it's a career, a business, or stronger relationships, abundance offers a powerful framework. Instead of assuming scarcity and competition, we can look for ways to expand the pie. Instead of getting caught up in perfect processes, we can focus on rapid experimentation and real-world results. Instead of accepting that this is just how things work, we can question whether our current systems actually serve our goals. The book ultimately argues that abundance isn't just about having more stuff. It's about creating the conditions where everyone can thrive. This requires a fundamental shift from scarcity thinking to abundance thinking, from process obsession to outcome focus, and from blocking change to building better alternatives. The most practical takeaway is this. In your own life, where are you experiencing chosen scarcity? What processes, habits, or mindsets are creating artificial limitations? Where could you prioritize speed and results over perfect planning? How could you shift from trying to prevent bad outcomes to actively building good ones? Abundance reminds us that the future isn't something that happens to us, it's something we build. And the biggest obstacle to building the world we want isn't a lack of resources or technology. It's our own systems, habits, and assumptions that keep us stuck in patterns of scarcity rather than embracing the abundance that's possible when we choose to build rather than block.